Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are unpacking a truly harrowing, real life story sourced directly from Prem Chauhan. Now, this narrative begins back in 2021 as a super relatable scenario. You have a Hindi literature teacher from a small village, struggling with financial burdens, just looking to land a standard corporate job to support his family. Simple, right? Well, as the source material reveals, this mundane job hunt literally spirals into something entirely unimaginable. Prem finally lands that corporate job in Gurgaon, but he is immediately sent away for training. And I want to highlight this specific quote from the source. Nature had planned to use it to uncover a horrific incident. That perfectly sets the tone for what we are about to explore. Because, guys, this wasn't just a regular business trip. It was a direct collision course with an ancient, dark energy that absolutely none of them were prepared for. To really grasp the scale of this explainer, we need to map out the journey. Prem starts in his village of Bahorakala. Then, on January 2nd, 2022, he's flown to Gachibowli in Hyderabad with three colleagues, Aditi, Dev, and Shubham. From there, the company relocates the entire team to a service apartment in Goa, and the journey ultimately climaxes at the sacred Mehandipur Balaji. The geography here is crucial, because this paranormal attachment they pick up in one city, it actually follows them all the way across the country. Section 1, a new corporate job and the Hyderabad trigger. Let's move to and see how this builds. The team arrives in Hyderabad, checking into the first floor of their hotel, and almost immediately, the supernatural alarm bells begin to ring. The source highlights three subtle, yet completely terrifying triggers. First off, Prem instantly feels a dense, super heavy negative vibe on their floor. It's something his colleagues totally miss. Second, late at night after a trip to the market, Aditi brings a box of sweet rasgullas into Prem's room. Now, Prem's intuition absolutely screams at him not to eat them. He senses this overwhelming negativity attached to the food. Finally, as he's just trying to get some sleep, he spots incredibly fast, unnatural movement darting back and forth right outside his hotel room door. And this happens every single night. Now, this next detail is the absolute linchpin of our entire explainer. Prem isn't just some passive observer in all this. He is a deeply devoted follower of Lord Hanuman. He meditates and chants the Hanuman Chalisa every single day. As we decode the chaotic events that follow, keep this in the back of your mind. This specific, unwavering daily devotion acts as an invisible shield. Without it, the source makes it abundantly clear that Prem would not have survived what comes next. Section 2. The Goa Nightmares. Escalation. 10 days later, the company moves Prem, Aditi, Dev, Shubham, and their manager Vineet to a service apartment in Goa. If Hyderabad was the warning, Goa is where the nightmare actively breaches their reality. Consider Aditi's diet for a second. She is a strict Brahmin. She has never eaten meat in her life, not even during their time in Hyderabad. Yet the very moment they unpack their dinner in Goa, she aggressively rejects the vegetarian food and outright demands non-vegetarian dishes. Her colleagues are completely stunned. This abrupt, uncharacteristic shift is our first major psychological red flag that a foreign entity has really begun to exert its influence over her. 1:45 a.m. Burn this specific time into your memory. Across all the source material, this exact timestamp acts as the anchor point for the most intense, violent paranormal activities. It's basically the witching hour for the entity that is hunting this corporate team. Let's break down the 1:45 a.m. terror. Prem wakes up to the sound of dogs howling frantically at a tree across the street. Out of nowhere, a man with a completely burned face and glowing red eyes suddenly appears just meters away, freezing Prem in absolute terror, until his prayers finally banish the figure. A few nights after that, horrific noises start coming from Aditi's room. Dev goes to check, looks through her keyhole, and sees the impossible. He sees Aditi, naked, walking upside down on the wall. No way, right? But here's the kicker. When Prem looks through the same keyhole, she is peacefully asleep in bed. Add in the foul, rotting smells permeating Prem's room, and the psychological warfare is absolute. Section 3. Graveyards of the Djinn, the Baba's Revelation. Desperate for help, the team visits a Hanuman temple in Reis Magos, Goa, where the local priest redirects them to a powerful Baba in Velpoi, Old Goa. And this Baba, he is about to completely upend everything they thought they knew about their tormentor. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive twist the Baba reveals. When Prem brings Aditi in for treatment, the Baba looks at them and says, they brought the wrong person. The entity, which turns out to be a highly dangerous Djinn, was initially attracted to Aditi back in Hyderabad. Why? Because of her open hair, her perfume, and those late-night sweet rasgulas. But because a pundit had tied a sacred thread around her wrist during an earlier temple visit, the Djinn actually couldn't possess her. So it pivoted. It took the unprotected target instead, and that target was Dev. The horror really compounds when the Baba explains what Dev has been doing while everyone else is sleeping. Dev is sneaking out to a local graveyard every single night. He is catching live birds and eating them raw. Remember that terrifying burned man Prem saw under the tree with the howling dogs? Yeah, that wasn't a ghost. That was literally Dev physically transformed by the Djinn possessing him. Section 4. The Graveyard Exorcism. The entity is finally identified, but the solution is terrifying. The Baba insists that the only way to destroy this Djinn is to confront it on its own turf. They have to go to the graveyard, in the dead of night, on a Tuesday. The exorcism itself is strictly procedural. Prem, Shubham, and Aditi wait inside a protective circle drawn by the Baba. At 1 a.m., Dev arrives, catches a bird, and starts eating it alive. At exactly 1:45 a.m., Dev transforms into that burned entity again, roaring terribly. The Baba uses intense tantric mantras to literally pull the Djinn into the circle. It is a fierce struggle. The Djinn actually tries to counterattack and possess Prem, but it fails because Prem is continuously chanting to Hanuman. Finally, the Baba performs a goat sacrifice, forcing the Djinn to accept the offering and leave them forever. While trapped in that circle, speaking directly through Dev, the Djinn utters these incredibly chilling words about Aditi. I liked this girl, but I don't know why. I can't accept her. This directly confirms the sheer power of that sacred thread the priest had given her. It's a fascinating look at how deeply spiritual protections are viewed and valued in these source accounts. Section 5. The horror returns. A false ending. So, Dev wakes up with zero memory of what happened, the Djinn is gone, and the team just goes back to work. You would think the nightmare is over, right? Well, in the world of the paranormal, this is what we call a false ending. The true horror was just waiting in the wings to reveal itself. Just days later, the supernatural phenomena violently return. Working late, the office power suddenly cuts out. By the dim ambient light from the highway, they look up and see these creepy, humanoid shadows just hanging outside their second-story office windows. They immediately rush back to their apartment, only for every single person to hear a simultaneous, heavy knock on their bedroom doors at 1:30 a.m. Completely terrified, the entire team is forced to huddle up and sleep on the floor of Prem's room, relying entirely on his spiritual aura just to stay safe. The next morning, they find Aditi suffering from a blazing high fever. She's vomiting, her head is heavy. When Prem tries to comfort her, she recoils into the corner of the room and delivers this demonic threat in a completely different, heavy voice. None of your gods and goddesses can harm me. Don't dare touch me. This proves one horrifying fact. The Djinn from Hyderabad is gone, yes, but a completely new, totally distinct evil has now taken hold of Aditi. Section 6. Journey to Balaji Dham, the dark truth revealed. Local priests fail. Churches fail. Aditi's condition deteriorates so rapidly that the company actually flies her back to Delhi. From there, her family, along with Prem and her loyal colleagues, pack into cars and drive her toward Mehandipur Balaji Dham. For those who don't know, this is a site famous for dealing with extreme, severe exorcisms. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, lethal power of this new entity. During the drive, right near Bandikui, Aditi turns to Prem, who is sitting there silently chanting. She gives him this creepy, unblinking smile and says, "You're leaving this world." Instantly, their car loses balance and nearly gets crushed by a speeding truck. The entity wasn't just haunting her anymore. It was actively trying to murder everyone in the vehicle to prevent them from ever reaching the sacred temple. Before we hit the final reveal, let's take a quick detour to understand a concept called tantra sadhana. Basically, these are esoteric, ancient spiritual practices that were originally developed for the welfare of humanity. However, like many things, they can be tragically corrupted by individuals who are specifically seeking to cause intentional, targeted harm. And according to the source material, that is exactly what happened here. Once they finally get Aditi into the protective circle at Balaji Dham, the exorcists reveal the mind-bending truth of this entire narrative. Guys, there were always two hauntings. The Djinn from Hyderabad was merely a terrifying accidental attachment that got defeated back in Goa. But the true source of Aditi's suffering, that new entity trying to kill her on the highway, that was an intentional, highly lethal black magic curse. And the person who paid a dark tantric to cast it, it was Aditi's own jealous stepmother, who actively wanted her dead. Talk about a plot twist. So what happens to Aditi? This brings our story to a somewhat bittersweet resolution. Aditi does survive the ordeal at Balaji Dham. The source actually notes that an earlier tantric had managed to partially deflect the stepmother's original curse, which is why Aditi lived through the whole thing, though unfortunately the dark magic did leave her with a permanently damaged kidney. But the good news? Today, she is safely married, living a happy life, and is completely free from the curse. We've unpacked a deeply layered narrative today, full of accidental Djinn attachments, sacred protections, and the ultimate betrayal of a cursed ritual. The source material ends with a very stark warning. Those who corrupt esoteric practices for dark magic ultimately face miserable, destructive fates themselves. So I want to leave you with this final thought derived straight from the source. Knowing the severe repercussions, why do people still turn to these dark practices out of pure jealousy? Take a moment to ponder the true cost of these actions. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.